What I would suggest is putting some time aside to this. It's usually like, head of member comms, could be the CEO. There's never been a better time for companies to get their data in shape. This is a time to be spending time looking at how things are going to be done differently.
Welcome back to the Digital Customer Communications podcast, where we'll be discovering how leading regulated companies engage, retain, and delight customers at scale. In this episode, we speak to Ian Beestin, co-founder of Money Alive, a multi-award-winning video engagement platform. Ian shares his insights on the transition from static to dynamic customer communications, offering practical advice on how to leverage personalized content to enhance the customer experience and meet regulatory requirements. Ian, welcome.
Good morning, Sam. Thanks for having me on the show.
So what excites you about the current trends in digital customer communications?
I think the thing that's probably most exciting and is much talked about and much waited for is the pension dashboard, which is going to be this fantastic bringing together of everyone's disparate pensions data into a single place, a single source of truth. And whilst it's been, we've been waiting for it for a very long time, I do believe that we were actually going to see a pensions dashboard certainly within my lifetime. And I think it will be a really transformative experience, not only for the end viewer, the consumer of the information, but also I think it will give rise to a lot of innovation in terms of what companies will be able to help people do with that information. It's going to remove a huge barrier, I think, from people not really knowing what pensions they've got. And clearly will be one of the ways that we solve what I think is one of the most egregious problems in the industry, which is the lost pots problem. The fact that there's between, depends who you read, 26 and 50 odd billion of assets currently lost, which, if you think about it, is almost criminal, really. So that initiative is going to be quite transformative.
In terms of that initiative being brought in, obviously it's not just it being brought in that's important. Companies then have to wrangle with it. They have to adopt it. What kind of challenges internally do you see people facing when they're adopting this kind of tech, or when they're adopting, the kind of tech that you guys provide? What kind of challenges do you see in the adoption of new communications technologies?
Yeah, well, at the heart of that is basically the quality of data. And so because this is a legal obligation, then there's never been a better time for companies to get their data in shape so they can deliver it in the required format to meet the criteria for the pensions dashboard. But the benefits of getting your data in shape extend well beyond that, because clearly that means that if you can get your data quality high, then you can use it for other purposes as well. And if you can make it discoverable for a dashboard, you can make it discoverable for other things. For example, personalised member communications. I saw someone speaking recently who said, it really struck a chord with me. It was like, it's really hard to change the culture of people who've got too much to do. And I think we all feel a bit like that, and we've all got too much to do. But this external event of getting your data dashboard ready really does actually mean that people are forced really into getting their data clean and making it into a discoverable, usable format. So I think that actually will help. People often have to fight for priority and budget. And again, I think having this factor will help them with that. It's also problematic for people when they're fighting for budget, they have to show a return on investment. And, that's not always clear. So again, with this kind of compulsion, that overcomes that problem as well. I think also there's a general kind of fear sometimes and resistance to having people more engaged, because we've still got this issue about people worrying about advice and guidance. And, the one way to avoid stepping over to giving advice is not to do anything. Whereas, again, this external initiative is kind of forcing people to do things and think about things. And I think there's some kind of supportive regulatory things going on with the FCA at the moment as well, which is also encouraging people to think more and actually take an action.
I kind of want to dig into that compulsion of external events making way for other innovations to happen within a business. And often that is a case, like you say, of data and preparedness. So things like pensions dashboard, bring your data up to a certain level or in a certain organized, structured way that enables other things to happen. What kind of other tech do you think the pensions dashboard will enable with the foundation that it sets?
Well, that's a great question, Sam, because I think it's a kind of vehicle for people to use their imagination, because we've never had this before. So it's actually quite a hard question to answer until people actually see the shape. I think we're still, keen to see what it's going to look like. I mean, obviously, we're a video technology company, so one of the things we really want to see is for people to be able to watch their pensions dashboard and be talked through their pensions dashboard. So, we found from our research that people having to hunt around and click around and not always being sure about the right order in which they should consume their data. I think it's really important that people build on their knowledge. What we would clearly like to see is a solution whereby people can watch their dashboard and be talked through their dashboard so they do consume it in the correct and logical order. As already said, one of the things I really want to see is people starting to see where the gaps might be in their pension history, because this is the great way to sort of unlock this problem about lost pots. So I think some kind of visualization about a person's timeline, where they've been making contributions and where they haven't, would be a great way of thinking, oh, what was I doing then? Having it right in your face. Rather than that, I mean, the current situation is it's just drawers full of stuff. This is a very, very different experience. I did pose a question recently. I was speaking at a conference about this problem of lost pots, just to try and quantify it. And my question, and I'll leave this as a question, but how many years do you think you'd need to win the jackpot of the national lottery in order to match the amount of money that people have just lost? The answer, I'll tell you it's over 100 years, but that's a little quiz.
Wow.
Perhaps people can write in after this. So I think visualization of gaps is good. The ability to be talked through an experience is really good. And then there's all obviously things like open banking and the bringing together of other information. So the dashboard can be kind of contribute to an overall financial dashboard. So not just your pensions, but that one's nailed nicely by the dashboard. Thank you. Open banking brings your other financial things all into one place, all with discoverable data. And then things like cash flow planning could become a lot easier, because all the information about when income streams are going to begin, what are the likely reasonable expectations about what the level of funding could be for your future lifestyle, they're all in one place. So I'd like to see things like a walk through the dashboard, linking to other parts of your assets, the ability to add your own data in, for example, if you've got a holiday let or something like that, and then an overall cash flow planning model. And, I think that would be incredibly impactful for people. Also, let's not forget state pension. There's a brilliant resource at the moment, State Pension Forecast. How many people use it? What if you could just bring that into it, which you can, so you can then start to see, oh, I can see at this point in my life, I'm going to get a big uplift in income, £11,500 at the moment if you've paid 35 years NI. So what about me shaping my income like this so I could take more from my ISAs, a kind of bridging thing? And, maybe with some support about different ideas about how you might tackle common problems. I think also people might get a better understanding of real problematic things like risk, because at the moment, it's a very misunderstood term, I think, and there'll be an opportunity to get people to understand that, particularly obviously people with DC pensions, about what that means and how that might inform their asset allocation, their need to take risk. Because, if you can visualize what you actually need with various guaranteed of incomes that you've got, you might actually be able to get that risk reward equation a lot more closely. And I'm sure people will build tools to help people understand that. So there's a few thoughts anyway.
I mean, that paints a real picture of the future of financial services, and not just as an industry, but our financial services as consumers.
Yeah, on the new FCA value for money consultation, and I'll just quote 7.37, they talk about effectively supporting customers in their plans for retirement is likely to improve end saver outcomes significantly. So including metrics for this part of the value for money framework is important. So that's a brilliant regulatory license to say to people in our industry, this is really, really valued from a compliance point of view. effectively supporting customers. And they go on to say this proposed metric seeks to capture the percentage of savers using services to help plan and make decisions for their retirement. We are aware that it may be difficult to measure how savers use these services, and some schemes may point to an external tool, calculator, and modeler. I mean, I think we can look so well beyond this, because one of the great things about using digital communications is they are rich with data about how much they're being used. And that's one of the great things, about the services that we offer. We've always provided metrics, analytics about what the actual user experience is. So we can tell people, I often contrast our video canvas, say a video annual benefit statement on a video canvas delivered by our product Video Canvas to a traditional PDF. When it's received by the member and put in the drawer and not opened, the scheme is none the wiser. They have no idea. Whereas when you have a video, when people load the video, it creates an event. It goes into analytics package. When they press play, the same. When they successfully complete a recap exercise, which evidences understanding, which is all consumer duty friendly, obviously, it creates an event. So you get this rich data. So I think the FCA could potentially be more optimistic, actually, about how easy it is to measure these things when you do them with the right technology.
You sound very positive about regulation and compliance throughout what you said. I wonder how, personalization, richer data, more customization, more information for consumers sounds great. And it sounds very akin to kind of what you get in other industries. Financial services is notoriously slower to adopt these things because of the barriers, especially at the enterprise scale. I wonder if you can talk a little to, moving from where an enterprise financial services company is now to that future, and how you see regulation being, I guess, a barrier, and also the positives.
Well, I think in terms of the quotations that I've just given you from the FCA show a supportive regulatory environment. Going back to that point about busy people, it's hard to change their behaviour. These things now feel a bit like that compliance can often be seen as a cautious, quite conservative influence in a business, but I think what we're getting here is clear that they could actually be supportive to these kind of things. So if you've got a person in an organisation who wants to make a change, who really understands the stuff that they're sending out is not necessarily being valued and benefiting and changing the outcomes positively to the end user, I think they could, marshal compliance now more onto their side of the argument, rather than feel that they're somehow in conflict with it. It's very, very difficult, though. And what I would suggest is putting some time aside to this. So it's usually like, head of member comms, could be the CEO. But yeah, let's say it's a head of member comms. I think they need to put a time budget to this. Really, innovation is essentially innovation. There's never, again, dashboard, but also the wider adoption of AI and the opportunities that brings. That this is a time to be spending time looking at how things are going to be done differently. So I would strongly suggest that people do put like a Friday afternoon or ideally all day Friday, but some allocation of their time to stop their time just being frittered away doing business as usual, firefighting, which we all do as part of our jobs. I think you have to make time to innovate. So I say with a supportive regulatory framework, that's my suggestion. Create a budget of time for yourself to look around and see what's going on. From a plugging money alive point of view, I think our product can offer high impact with very, very low disruption. You don't have to spend a fortune on developers and product team in order to make significant improvements into what you're delivering to your members. But you do need to go out and investigate these things.
And in terms of the range of companies that you deal with, can it be very different, even just between sort of pension providers, for example, if they want to move from static PDF customer comms to richer dynamic video canvases, you call them?
I mean, we've had really positive experience of this. We've only really faced one company where to make the data discoverable was difficult, and actually the way they were keeping it was on PDFs, believe it or not. And so even our software development kit struggle with that. But that's how we tend to approach it, through an SDK. We deploy our technology on our customers' premises. So we're not a third-party processor from a data point of view. And actually, that is probably one of the things that has really sped up our development, because from an InfoSec point of view, there's no added risk from the way we particularly approach it. terms of sort of how people are using it, it can be from, I've already mentioned video annual benefit statements. So not watching and being talked through in a kind of clear presentation. I like to sort of think that we're not in the entertainment business. I know you're a guitarist and I'm a drummer.
I think you're more in the entertainment business than I am. The amount of gigs you do.
Yeah, indeed. We put a list of them after the show as well. Yeah, I think our communications are fairly serious minded. So we focus on clarity rather than entertainment, and we deliver things in a fairly, I think in a professional way. We don't put music on our videos. My colleague often says it's like if an advisor came around to see you and asked to turn the radio on before they did, their fact find, it would be a bit off-putting, wouldn't it? It's not really about that for us, but that really, really works, delivering people's pensions information that way. And it enables you to model different scenarios as well, kind of if this, then that, if that, then the other. And we've found that making the experience interactive is the real way of kind of overcoming a lot of engagement issues. So we have like a clickable menu on our video canvas, which is always exposed so people can click around and move around. We also have the recap exercise where people are understanding is tested, but not in a kind of test like A-level type thing, but more of a kind of, it's a drag and drop, you can't get it wrong. But actually, it's a great way of reinforcing things that you really, really want your member or your client to know. The learning goes from passive, watching, listening, to active, because you're searching. And often what we think about is when we talk to our customers and about their communication challenges, we want to get over the points that they want them to understand. And we also want to understand what our customer wants their member to do next. So understandable and actionable is the bits that we really, really focus on. And in terms of actionable, recap is a good way of actually encouraging people to take an action. So a simple example, we've got a video canvas that's about scams. And what we really want people to do is, get a general awareness of the type of ways that a scammer might approach them. But we also want to give them some resource. What can I do? What can I do if I'm worried about this? And what we want people to do is to visit and bookmark FCA Scams, a fantastic resource. So we talk about it in the video, but we also talk about it in the recap. So you're really layering it on thick. You're giving people information in a different way, and then you're presenting people at the end with the next steps, which in this case is go to ScamSmart, but it could be go to the member portal and update your expression of wish form, or it could be book an appointment, or it could be download a full version of this report, but whatever that is, but you kind of sell it during the experience. And then another good example of things like triggering personal experiences from QR codes. So we have a client who uses, the most ironically named document in the pension industry is the wake-up pack, which tends to be extremely long and probably doesn't wake many people up. Often gets left because people don't understand, if I don't fill this in, I don't get my pension. We've got a customer now who's got a QR code that triggers a video that talks people through the wake-up pack. It's got their own data, the single source of truth that populates the wake-up pack, populates the video. It has real impact because it's you're looking at your form. And one of the messages we really stress in the video is fill this in, please, because if you don't, you're not getting any money. And it's a different way of presenting that information rather than getting lost in reams of text, really. So that's just a couple of examples of how people are using it and how you can start making a big impact without really a huge amount of investment required by the company.
Yeah, those are great examples of specific goals as well that you can set for deploying this kind of tech.
The actionable thing is really key to what drives us. And we want people to do something, and that's often a great way of talking to a customer. What is it that you want them to do at the end? In this case, it's, I want them to fill this bloody form in, because if they don't, they'll end up phoning us 5 days before their pension comes, and we'll get loads and loads of calls into our help desk all at the same time. And there's been 6 months. And we know, more importantly than the inconvenience for our customer, actually, if people make decisions quickly, they often make poor decisions. It's really important to get people thinking, give them plenty of time to understand the different options that they have and how they might want to access their pension. So actually getting early is just win-win. It's easier for our customer, and it's way better for their customer as well. Yeah.
And I imagine it's easier when you have that definitive action-oriented goal than when it's a statementing kind of thing, when it's you just want someone to consume some information. How are you evaluating whether understanding, I guess, when it's an annual benefit statement or something that doesn't require a follow-up action?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So first of all, going back to the point that our technology is deployed on our customers' premises, we don't get that data. Our customers get that data, and obviously they share it with us. And what they find is a huge uptick in the number of people who are consuming information this way than the way that they were doing it previously. What the real kind of, when you've got something, when you've got your numbers, if I'm talking to you, Sam, and say, hey, Sam, this is your pension, this is what it's worth, that gets your attention because it's your name, it's your numbers. That is a great opportunity to talk about something else. Like, Sam, I mean, you've got a young child. Have you completed your expression of wish form? So you don't just give them the numbers, but there's an important thing that you also want out of this, which is you want them to complete an expression of wish form. So you can weave those two things in together. It may be that a video annual benefit statement, the key action at the end is to drive people to do something like do that because it's important. And great thing about our product is the data that triggers things like the color of the experience, the logos of the experience, the individual viewers' numbers. It also can drive the scene selection as well. So you can have something like, actually, Sam has completed his expression of wish form. Let's not bother with that scene. Or let's just say, well done for completing your expression of wish form. Just be mindful to keep that up to date as your circumstances change. Or it could say, oh, Sam hasn't done it. The product will interrogate the data, in which case it will say it's really important and this is why, and this is what you need to do next. There's all kinds of things like, modeling, pie opportunities, foregoing increments in your pension in order to have a higher pension. Again, it's about modeling and looking at different options. And again, they're a great way of where, data can support the story. Not any story, your story. And I think that the combination of that personal thing with the action that you want to take, which is you want someone to understand pie and you want someone to make the right decision, but that is the action that you want to take. Yes, I want it. No, I don't. Or yes, I want more information. Or no, I don't.
Yeah. So at that level, it's really clear to understand engagement. I wonder when companies who have successfully deployed more dynamic communication solutions, personalized communication solutions, what kind of metrics would they be looking at for ROI? What kind of timescale would they be looking at for return on investment and for deploying the solution? Is this a 2-year timescale that they'd be looking at? Would they not be looking at it in those terms?
I don't think they necessarily would be looking at it in those terms. No, I think what they're looking at is they want to improve the outcomes for the members, and their awareness is that people are consuming information differently. So, I think a mobile phone, it should be the first port of call really that you visit in terms of what your communications look like if you're going to, particularly with auto enrollment where you're likely to get a younger demographic. But the metrics are quite clear to them. Our companies use a whole host of different analytics packages, and using our SDK, they just plumb them in so they can get the data in the shape that they want to hit their objectives for their trustees or whoever it is that they're accountable to. So no, we've come across, I think it's more people like really frustrated because they don't really feel, the member outcome is universally important to everyone I've ever met, and they kind of feel frustrated that people aren't really engaging with the information that they're putting out, often which is of extremely high quality as well. So I think it's more that kind of driver. There's also kind of obvious things, and I've spoken to people at Beyond Encryption about data on terms of, using resources more efficiently. And paper is not a very efficient way of communicating with people, whereas digital is. And there's a movement, obviously, to try and increase the percentage of number of people who are accessing information.
Where do you see the most successful leaders get that, or how do you see them get that ball rolling internally? Obviously, there are internal barriers, not just the regulation and tech, but internal vested interests in different platforms. Obviously, everything you do, every innovation creates some level of disruption internally because it touches everybody.
Yeah.
And what kind of qualities, I guess, do you see in the people who have deployed this solution and led the change effectively?
Well, I think So I think frustration is one of the word I've already used. So
they care, essentially. They really care.
Honestly, this industry is full of people who really care.
Yeah.
Hugely. And, one of the problems we all have, I think, is we probably all worked in the industry too long and take a lot for granted. And so this is one of the exciting things about AI. The ability to do market research now it's never been easier. There's a plethora of ways of finding out about real people and not people who've worked in the pensions industry for 10, 20, 30, sometimes 40 years. There's so many tools available where you can pick cohorts of people. So let's say first time into auto enrollment, what do those people broadly look like? You can define that so easily and then start asking those people questions for relatively small amounts of money. So I think doing research about what your members think is a great way of actually starting here. And AI also gives the ability to prototype products now ridiculously cheaply. So you can actually deliver experiences to people that haven't chewed up massive amounts of development time. That there are AI systems now that will help you develop and prototype an idea. You can use then platforms for testing that idea, get really, really good data. I mean, we've just interviewed 43 people in a particular demographic where we've compared a kind of serious-minded video versus a more entertaining video. And, we've got some really, really interesting data on that. Everyone loves the serious stuff, as I mentioned earlier. But it's really, we're a small company and it's easy for us to do that. And now we know where we want to go next with this research. So I would encourage other companies to look at the tools that are available for researching stuff. There's at least 5 we use.
I suppose it's easier in a way now to enable future change because the tech that we're using is more dynamic. In the past, if you were an enterprise financial services company and said, I want all of my statements to be video, that would be static video, and it would have a lifetime of maybe a year, at most.
Yeah, and it'd all be rendered in the cloud.
Yeah,
it'd all be rendered in the cloud, and it would create anxiety, I think, with some people from a security point of view. So it is different. I mean, AI is great and also a threat to people's occupations. But one of the things that we've noticed, we use AI presenters in our video canvas product. They're popular with viewers. They've improved a lot over the last 2 years. We have a panel of presenters that we do a showreel for our customers. These things get better all the time. We also use AI voiceovers now in some of our experiences. And I was talking to my colleague and co-founder Andy Kirby yesterday about some of the work we did originally. And we had up to 6 external suppliers for one video. 2 animators, voiceover artists, studio person, director, cameraman. I mean, now it's very, very different. And when the lifetime allowance changes came in last year, it was an absolute ball ache to go back to those 6 people and have to undo some of that. Whereas now, one of our video canvas customers had to change their video canvas and because of a change in lifetime allowance, and it was done in a morning at very little cost to them. So because they are living, breathing, evolving assets, it's a bit like the difference between publishing a brochure. Once you've printed 25,000 off, you're done, aren't you? That is it. That's the capture in time. Whereas these things, you can change them and also you can test them. So a really, really cool thing to do is actually before a product is released by a company, we can test it on a typical cohort and actually make any refinements as well. Again, using the tools that I've said, research tools, relatively cheaply, you can actually do a dry run of these things and say, actually, that one's tweaking. And because it's AI, you can tweak it in an instant, really. Pretty exciting, I think.
It is. And I think, even things like AI, it may be that organizations aren't moving to adopt AI immediately in some areas. But when you do something like make your communications richer through personalized video content, you're putting your data all in the right place to enable future transformations like that. And you can see that the acceleration, the rate of acceleration of change can then become a lot quicker.
Yeah, and I think people need, quite rightly, assurance about security when it comes to AI. So I think it needs to be very, very carefully handled. And I say, for example, some of the companies we use to do market research use AI. We use AI presenters, but they're not handling personal data and they never will. I think it's some of the kind of large language models where you're using it to actually interrogate on a particular question, then security is really, really important. But I know some great companies out there working on that now, and I think they will have quite a big impact in the fairly short term as well.
Yeah, it just has to be done in the proper way.
Yeah, you really, really, really got to respect
your
customers' data. And there's plenty of legislation out there, but obviously that's just the right thing to do. I think handle with care, but don't not do it. Just do it carefully. Do it in a well-informed way. There's lots of people, I think, who are out there able to help. You just need to do a bit of searching, really.
Yeah, and do it in a way that puts your customers' frustrations first.
Yeah.
All right, I think I have taken up too much of your time already. Ian, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can we find you, just as a last note?
We've got a website, videocanvas.co.uk, one word. My colleague Aaron came up with the name of Video Canvas because it's a composite of a video and a canvas that can accept data. And it's really, really stuck as a name. I think it was a kind of working site. Yeah. So videocanvas.co.uk. You can find out a bit more.
We'll list all of your gigs under the video. Yeah.
I don't think Aaron would be that keen on that, actually.